break some of those chains, create those habits, and become the best version of yourself.
If I can beat sugar, you can beat just about anything in your life that you're struggling with.
Once you make that commitment, then you have to change how you think about yourself, right?
Acknowledgement is the first step in any recovery process. Hey guys, welcome to the Uncommon Freedom Show. Kevin Tinter here with my lovely wife, Beck. Beck, say hi.
Hello, everybody. Bekah Tinter here, and glad to be with you for another episode of the Uncommon Freedom Show.
Yeah, we're really excited. So we are going to be hosting, coming up in about a month and a half, early December, we are going to be hosting a workshop on basically how to thrive in 2025.
Yes.
We're going to condense our
Year-end reflection
guide. And
yes.
We actually have it being revamped into an awesome workbook instead of just a printable.
Yes.
And we're really excited. So we're going to spend a couple hours. If you live in the Gilbert area of Arizona, you can join us. We'll be publishing details. We're still working out registration costs and things like that and all those details. But we're really excited. Basically, we're going to be walking our friends through, the people who join us, we're going to be walking them through the process that we've really developed and used for the last several years to help us what we call design our life. So
absolutely. All right, let's get started on this week. We're going to talk about the 3 steps to overcoming addiction. So
boom.
What brought on this topic?
Yeah, so I'm really excited because I'm sharing just the practical steps that I have implemented since really August 1st or maybe a couple days before then to finally overcome my sugar addiction. And so I know many people struggle with food addictions. There's lots of other addictions out there. I'm certainly not an addiction specialist, but I also know that there's a lot of crap and 12 steps and this and that work for some people. And a lot of it is more academic or it's more kind of theoretical as opposed to what has actually helped me, because I've been working on my health journey for over 13 years. And without a doubt, the one thing for me has always been sugar.
We're definitely not suggesting you not get additional help if needed.
Absolutely.
So
but I'm confident because of how much I struggled with sugar addiction that if this worked for me and you legitimately apply these 3 steps, I'm confident that you can have victory with whatever addiction you might be struggling with.
I'm pretty impressed.
There are some things that need medical supervision. So I believe that actually alcohol is one of those things that can cause, I'm reaching back, into my law enforcement days. I know that alcohol withdrawal can actually require medical supervision. And there are some drugs that if you quit cold turkey can have some pretty serious side effects. Medically, I don't know what kind of supervision you need for that. So keep that in mind. But if we're talking about a more habit, lifestyle type addiction that you might have, I really think these are going to work.
Okay, so let's start with number 1.
All right. The first one is to admit you have a problem. This is really crucial because acknowledgement is the first step in any recovery process. It's one thing to say, I really like it, or this is a weakness of mine. It's a whole nother thing to say, I'm downright addicted. This is out of control in my life.
When did you realize this about sugar?
I think I've known it for a very long time. Mm-hmm. I mean, I tell people that my grandmother on my dad's side of the family, she spelled love with sugar. Mm-hmm. The second my parents would leave when I was a little kid, she would bring a purse full of candy, and it's just how she knew to love. She would start, not force feeding me because I was so sugar deprived as a little kid that it was like, oh yay, sugar. But that's just when I look back, there's kind of like probably a generational sugar addiction in my family. And so I've known that I struggled with it, but just realizing that coming to grips with the fact that, man, I have to make this change.
It was probably the one thing holding up your health journey, would you say?
Exactly, without a doubt.
You were doing so many other things well.
Exactly. Yeah. And when I went 11 weeks without sugar, and just so people know, when I talk about going without sugar, I'm really talking about eliminating junk food. If there's incidental sugar in a recipe, whether it's, pancake mix or bread or something like that, I'm not completely eliminating all
If
sugar.
he accidentally eats chocolate chip cookies because they have sugar in it, just kidding. We don't
Nope.
do that around
I've
here.
been very intentional to avoid that stuff.
That's right. I would say you grew up with so little sugar, right? I mean, at least what you share, if I remember correctly, growing up, I mean, yogurt was dessert, was kind of how you described it.
When my mom was in charge, you know, yogurt would actually, but actually the funny thing is we didn't read nutrition labels back then.
Right.
And actually, if you were to look at the type of yogurt we used to eat, I think it was Dannon and Breyers, like the fruit at the bottom.
Yes.
It's actually loaded with sugar.
Fruit at the bottom was like the best part of the yogurt.
It was, but it was actually loaded with sugar. But, you know, when you're a kid, you know, dessert is not yogurt, it's ice cream. It's
so when your dad was in charge, did you guys have treats way back when?
There weren't a ton of times when my mom traveled or left and my dad was responsible for us. Definitely he would splurge with sugar. You know, if we were doing a day with dad or something like that, we would definitely have more sugar than we would. And I saw the same type of thing.
Probably the same thing in our house, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely when we first started camping and I would take the kids, like it was s'mores and smackos and Chicago mix and things like that. So anyways, we don't need to dwell on all of my bad habits, but one of the things I just wanted to talk about is that admitting the problem allows the person to face reality and recognize the need for change. And it's also the point where they can start seeking help and resources. Now, I'm grateful that I didn't need help, like professional help and resources, although I did use resources. I'm going to talk about the book Atomic Habits real quickly, which is a phenomenal book. Mm-hmm. It really kind of helped me make that mental pivot to implement all the steps that I'm talking about here in just a second. So the second step was to publicly declare your commitment to change and invite accountability. So once again, I think all of us know, especially you think about your health, you think about maybe your financial situation, maybe in your relationships or your marriage. I think we all know what's that one thing, and maybe we just struggle in one area. And so maybe it's an addiction to shopping or, you know, Amazon or something like that. For me, I always knew that the one thing was sugar. And I always hesitated. I would say in my head, I'm going to go without sugar. But without that public accountability, it didn't have the same effect. And I did 11 weeks without sugar in about 2.5 years ago, a little less than 2.5 years ago. And one of the things I did is said, I'm going without sugar in the entire month of, I think it was April was when I kicked it off. Mm-hmm. And that public declaration made a huge difference. And so
definitely different than I think, because you've told me things before, and it's not great, honestly, to have your spouse be your accountability partner in some of these areas. I mean, what happens with us is, you know, we tell each other we want accountability, and then the other person steps in to check in, and it's very nagging, or it feels that way. And, you know, as the spouse, it's also hard to watch because you're like, well, are you doing it or are you not doing it? But again, it's not the best role. It's better to have outside accountability to just protect the integrity of your marriage. And
so I think the combination is,
but when you go on public,
and you don't have to declare this to the entire world.
Right.
But
could be a small group of people.
Make a public commitment to a group that will hold you accountable. So for me, what I did was, and also people that you don't want to let down. And so
this makes me feel like crap because you
no, it's just the familiarity of a marriage relationship makes it not the ideal.
I just had the epiphany that I should have used a different motivational tactic. I can just imagine if I had said to you, no sex if you have any sugar.
That is not healthy for the marriage.
That wouldn't have helped. I mean, no. I feel like that would have been.
I mean, that would not. That is not. That's
okay. It's not biblical. We're not going to hold back on sex.
The way that I did this is I told our group of coaches that we work with and we train with on a regular basis that are also health minded. I said, hey guys, I'm sharing something that I've struggled with, and I'm making a commitment. And for me, my commitment was that I not have any sugar until I get either below 10% body fat, which I'm still working towards but haven't reached yet. Or we reached a different business metric milestone, like a specific goal that we've been working on.
Right.
And there were two goals that I knew were going to take some time to get to. So it wasn't like I'm just going to do this for 1 week. It was like I intentionally invited accountability and said I'm not going to have any until I do something that I knew was going to take several months to accomplish. And actually, the interesting is I just kind of reflect on this is that I'm okay with how long it's taking me to get below 10%, because now granted, my mindset has totally shifted, where in the past it was like, okay, I'm below 10%, I'm going to have sugar. It was like across the finish line. My mindset has totally shifted.
You didn't reset your structural tension when you...
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. But I'm also okay with it taking me so long, because I know the longer it takes me, the more I'm cementing the habit of not having sugar.
And you are microdosing adversity, I would say.
Yeah.
Which you're really good at. Well, I have to admire you for that.
But the key here was the public declaration to people that I didn't want to let down. I mean, the bottom line is the group of people I made the commitment to, we're kind of the figurehead leaders.
Right.
And there were times where I'm taking the kids out and they're having ice cream, or just, there's moments of weakness where I've been very tempted, almost without thinking, to do something. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I made a commitment to my coaches, and I'm not going to let them down. And so that key is really important. The public declaration, once again, but the key is to a group that's going to support you, not a group that's going to mock you, and not a group that is not going to hold you accountable.
Right. Right. And I feel like once you make that commitment, then you have to change how you think about yourself, right?
Uncommon freedom is a game changer, not only for the focused leader, but also for the rudderless sojourner seeking direction. When Kevin talks, I listen. I lean in and always leave a better man. As the wisdom of Proverbs 3:13 states, happy is the man who finds wisdom and the man who gains understanding. I want to warn you in advance to prepare your spirit for a heart and mind shift as you read this book. I have learned that conviction comes when the heart is open to change. As I read this book, I was moved on several occasions to evaluate my personal life and make course corrections. And this isn't just a book, it's a manual for creating godly leaders who we desperately need today, and especially as our children walk the earth in whatever it looks like 10, 20, 30 years from now. Who knows that we need leaders who embody these things, because not only do we need people who are healthy and wealthy and have the right heart, but we need people who know where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom.
So let's talk about number 3.
Yeah. So this was the one thing that I'd never done before. I've admitted I have a problem before. I've publicly declared the commitment and invited the accountability. But this third step is something that really the Atomic Habits book helped me make this shift. And that is switching my identity from an addict to the new person I want to become. So James Clear in the book talks about that and I think when I talk to people who have tried 12-step programs, and I know that they can be helpful for some people, but I also know that their success rate is actually fairly low. And my understanding is, like, if you're an alcoholic and you go to AA, you say, my name's Kevin and I'm an alcoholic.
So you're constantly identifying as an alcoholic.
Identifying as an alcoholic. And the idea here is, I think, to say, you know what, honest. I'm always going, right. I have an issue with this.
Right.
But what James Clear talks about is your identity. When you identify as something, you behave with what goes along with
You meet
the
expectations of that identity.
Exactly.
Naturally.
And so in the past, I said, I'm a sugar addict. I thought it was like this humble thing to say, just admit the fact that I was a sugar addict. But what I realized is I have the power to change from being a sugar addict to actually someone who's no longer controlled by sugar, who doesn't celebrate it. I mean, we're getting ready to leave on our annual favorite family vacation, where we have a chef available to us. They cook, dessert, lunch, and dinner. And I've already decided, like, it's not, in fact, it wasn't even a decision, but I'm not going to have dessert. Right. Where in the past, it's like, well, this is a special occasion. I'm going to have dessert and I'll get back on track when I get back. But I've been, our anniversary.
I've never seen you so committed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on an absolute roll. It's been amazing.
I'm really impressed by this commitment.
The key was saying, you know what? I'm done being a sugar addict. Yes, I realize I've had a weakness with this in my entire life, but I'm done with it.
Yeah.
I have the ability to change it. And I'm the type of person now who actually isn't controlled by sugar. So my identity has shifted. And because of that, my mind is different. My behavior is different. I'm no longer like, I make a fruit smoothie, or I have an apple with some almonds or peanut butter or something like that. And it's amazing how delicious it tastes. And that's my dessert now. But the identity fact of saying I'm no longer a sugar addict has been an absolutely powerful, that was the missing piece for me. So this is going to be a relatively short podcast, but I know there's other people out there that can struggle. And so, the key is admitting you have a problem, make a public declaration and commitment, and ask for accountability. But the key there being from people that will support you and encourage you. And then switching your identity from what you don't want to be to who you want to be. So once again, for me, even the last time I went 11 weeks without sugar, I was like, I was still identifying as a sugar addict.
Right.
And so eventually, it was actually Father's Day weekend. I enjoyed some treats, I had some sugar, and I did a good job for a while of only having sugar once a week. But it became this slow creep back to my old habits. And the other thing is, it's amazing. This is how I knew I was addicted, is because when I couldn't have it, I thought about it a lot. And I also realized, I would go to it.
Bored, angry, tired.
Yeah, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. I mean, it was just a way past time, and just deciding I'm now the type of person that I'm not an addict anymore. Mm-hmm. And so my behavior, because I'm not an addict, my behavior has changed. My mindset has changed. So
can I just say, as your wife, this is very sexy.
Oh, wonderful.
Very, very sexy. And also, I was cracking up inside because when I was a school teacher in Okinawa, Japan, I was pretty healthy-minded. I would go running frequently. I ate, I think, pretty healthy. Not like I know how to eat now. But I had committed to my fellow first grade teachers that I was only going to have sugar on Saturdays. I think I kept up with it. I really can't remember. It was a long time ago. But one of the joke gifts they gave me one year for Christmas or something was a calendar that was all Saturdays as a joke, because they knew how disciplined I was about it or whatever. So it was something that just came to mind. I completely forgot about that.
I love that.
Also, I wanted to just, as we kind of close, say what the power is in that word becoming, because you might say well, a lot of people want to be healthy, but they know they're not healthy yet. So it feels like cognitive dissonance to be I'm a healthy person, but maybe you're 100 pounds overweight, or you have the behavior and habits that are not healthy yet. But when you say becoming, it's that transition process of I'm starting to make those decisions. Now I hear you saying you're kind of there. You've arrived from the standpoint of your mindset has completely shifted. But when you're in the process, at the very least, you're saying, I'm becoming the type of person who doesn't consume sugar anymore. So I guess that's a helpful maybe step for people to take, so that they don't overnight, you don't become this.
And James Clear talks about it. Every decision you make becomes a vote for the type of person you want to become.
So while you're voting at the beginning, especially, you have to have the becoming.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not like I don't have this awareness I realize that I'm now, my identity has changed. I've overcome this addiction, but I also realize it was a weakness in my life in the past. And so I'm not going to be reckless with the fact that if I go back to old habits, that the addiction couldn't come back, number one. And then I was going to say something else, and it just kind of lost my mind. I think the power, though, of making decisions ahead of time. I mean, I've made through some events I went back to Ohio about a 1 month into this, and Ohio has, I think, the best ice cream in the world.
Yes.
It is my kryptonite.
Yes.
I go there once, maybe twice a year. Mitchell's ice cream, unbelievable ice cream.
And you wouldn't go and normally just have a scoop of ice cream.
Oh no, I always get the largest.
It would be
triple scoop waffle
the largest,
cone, and I would get one to go and have one while I'm there, or get a
slightly appalling
to go. Yeah, I mean, it was. Just being honest with people. And the truth was, sugar didn't really affect my weight. I mean, I kept my weight still for the last several years. The worst I ever got was in the 14% body fat.
Which is pretty amazing.
It is. And so the reality is I could manage my addiction.
Right.
But it was impacting my life. And, if you looked at what I spent my cash on, you'd say, you're not a health coach. You're not a healthy person. Right. I even looked like it, but if you actually looked at what my habits were, at least in, different slices of time. So, but when I made it through the entire weekend, dinners and all kinds of stuff, my aunt's also homemade gelato, which is amazing. And it was just I'm not going to have it. I'm not going to have a taste. Those making it through events like that were huge boosts in confidence. Those were some major votes. They're like, okay, like you're not.
A lot of times we just need
anymore.
to prove to ourselves that we can do something.
And I want to just encourage us all. Like we will hold other people accountable, far more accountable than we'll hold ourselves. We quit on ourselves much quicker than we quit on other people. So anyways, I hope this encourages you guys. I know, and here's the thing is that sugar, I've heard this over and over, is far more addictive than cocaine. So we
have not tried cocaine, for the record. But
this is why I know that if I can beat sugar, you can beat just about anything in your life that you're struggling with. And just want to encourage you guys, do it. If you're going to take something on, please, comment either on the podcast or in the video. Send us a message, and I'm going to root you on. And shoot me your stories because I want to cheer for you guys.
Love that. So excited. And again, just another step towards creating a life of uncommon freedom. Again, common is to be addicted to things that don't serve you well. Uncommon is choosing to break some of those chains, create those habits, and become the best version of yourself.
All right, let's go on vacation.
Amen. See you later.
All right, friends, please subscribe to the podcast for more insights on blending entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial mindset with intentional living. You can follow us on social media. We are on Instagram primarily and Facebook, and you're going to find daily tips and inspiration from us there. You'll also find us on YouTube, lots of shorts, as well as our video podcast. And then please, if you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and share us. And remember to subscribe on YouTube, as well as whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on.